Okay, this screencast is going to start with the rise of political parties. So if your class made it beyond this point, then you can fast forward. So we've already kind of addressed the fact that these factions are starting to form early on, but now they're going to kind of become more official. Despite Washington's warnings, political parties will appear, and the first party system that's developed consists of the Federalist Party and the Democratic Republican Party. The face of the Federalist Party was Alexander Hamilton, while the face of the Democratic Republicans was Thomas Jefferson. The Federalist Party mainly consisted of wealthy merchants, manufacturers, obviously Northerners, whereas the Democratic Republicans were in higher concentrations located in located in the South. They were planters, farmers, some Western settlers. When I say Western, I don't mean like Wild West, New Mexico. I mean just west of the colonies, because we are going to start to see westward expansion into that Ohio River Valley territory to the west of the Appalachian Mountains. In our next presidential election, John Adams will be elected president. He is the second U.S. president, and he was a Federalist. So, if you kind of recall, both the British and the French were seizing American goods on ships in the Atlantic. We had already addressed how America handled this with England, but France is still continuing to attack our ships and seize goods. So John Adams is going to send American diplomats to France to try to work out a peace agreement. And the American diplomats are met by 3 French officials who only refer to themselves as X, Y, and Z. They're not revealing their real names. And they actually attempt to bribe the American diplomats. They basically want money from America in order for them to stop attacking our ships. Like, we would have to pay them. And that's bribery. And that's not very good. And it's very frowned upon in this day and age. And so the American diplomats will return without seeking or achieving a peace agreement, and the American public is furious when they hear that their former French allies were trying to bribe them. And this leads to what we call a quasi-war, quasi spelled Q-U-A-S-I. And this basically means an almost war, like a not really but kind of, but not officially war. War is never officially declared with France, but we do have several incidents where French and American ships attack each other in the Atlantic. But eventually a peace deal is worked out, but it just got very close to an official war with France, which is why we call it a quasi-war. So also during John Adams' presidency, 2 kind of controversial pieces of legislation are passed, called the Alien and Sedition Acts. There are 2 separate laws, Alien Act and Sedition Act. The Alien Act allowed the president to deport dangerous aliens. This is not like outer space aliens. This aliens refers to people not from America. So the president can essentially deport anyone he deems like a suspicious or dangerous alien or foreigner. This gives the president a lot of power that's not mentioned in the Constitution at all. The second law that is passed is the Sedition Act. Sedition refers to treason, specifically like crimes against the government. But what the Sedition Act did was prohibit speech or publication in the form of any kind of attack on the president, Congress, or American government. So, like, legally, people could not speak or publish anything that attacked or criticized the president or the legislature. That's a big violation of the First Amendment, aka freedom of speech, so this was very controversial. Many Republicans claim immediately this is very unconstitutional and should be found null and void, whereas the Federalists are claiming that this is in the best interest of the American people and it's designed to protect the U.S. from rebellion and from foreign danger. But checks and balances should have caught this act as unconstitutional, but keep in mind that the Supreme Court is the branch of government that has the power to federally review laws and determine constitutionality, and they actually don't have that power yet. That's coming in an important Supreme Court decision that we'll discuss in class in a few days. Essentially, this is going to kind of come up within the states themselves, because certain states are going to try to void these laws, saying, well, we decide that these are unconstitutional, so we're not going to abide by them. And that's what the Kentucky, or Virginia and Kentucky resolutions do. Basically, both the states of Kentucky and Virginia declare that the Alien and Sedition Acts were unconstitutional, and that they are basically refusing to recognize them in their states. They are claiming that since nowhere in the Constitution does it say who has the power to interpret laws as constitutional or not, that it's the states that do have that right. This is going to kind of be a debate for some time until we get the Supreme Court case Marbury versus Madison that we'll talk about later. But for now, Virginia and Kentucky are attempting to stand up to the unconstitutionality of the Alien and Sedition Acts. So they void both of them in their states. All right, write down any questions you have, and we'll pick up with Thomas Jefferson in class tomorrow.